listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again today, just like any other time. We have another amazing show lineup for y'all. We have our special guest. His name is Gregory Newson. He has an amazing website you can go check out. It's newsonpublishing.com. He has a brand name, Uncle Gregory's. He does amazing things, not just selling coffee, not just writing, not just doing great books, but he's going to have a life story he's going to share with us first and foremost. Mr. Entrepreneur, Mr. Writer, Sir Gregory, how you doing, Uncle Gregory?
Well, if I was doing any better, feeling any better, it would be illegal. So with that said, I will try to answer the questions in a calm way, but I don't waste a lot of time. I'm 75 years old, so I got a lot of stuff I still got to do.
Yes, sir. I believe that. So kind of tell us a little bit about your story. In the green room, we kind of talked a little bit about your painting and being in Harlem, but tell the audience a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, I was born in Harlem, New York. Went to Stitt Junior High School with Frankie Lyman and Cal Calloway and a couple other celebrities came from this high school. This is just during the time when drugs were really infiltrating the Black communities, which fattened American banks quite substantially. But I'm not going to get into that. What I'm getting into is me becoming disenchanted as hearing the echoes that why try to be a Black artist? You ever heard any American Black artists become famous? You're going to starve to death. Get a job. And, of course, trying to say that you're a Black artist during your teen when puberty's kicking in wasn't getting you no dates. So, and when all the other guys got creases in their dungarees and white Converse sneakers, you got flip-flops and raggedy pants. But that was just a teenage trend that helped isolate me to be thrown into the art class all the time because of disruptive behavior. But the only reason I was disruptive because I was terrified to get up and have to read in front of the class or read from the blackboard. Embarrassment was the greatest thing that haunted me, not to be able to appear as an achiever in academics. So a stage fright, a board fright, classroom fright, whatever it is. So I started being thrown into the art class, in which I started winning art teen shows, which gave me a real sense of purpose, something to hang on to, which I obviously hung on to this day. And original paintings, I've sold a few, and then I had some white gentlemen just before I joined the Black Panther Party and followed Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X come to one of these teen art shows and give me a scholarship to the famous artist school. Later on down the road, after I got out of prison, I learned this white gentleman that came with a local congressman to give me this scholarship was Norman Rockwell. Now, listen, Norman Rockwell was not a household name in the Black community during that time. And I knew very little about illustrators. I knew much about Van Gogh or Rembrandt, Mozart, Lautrec, painters, but not illustrators. But anyway, as you look at my artwork, you'll see that I follow his style immensely after calling this white man a cracker. Not to his face, of course, in front of other tribal members of the Black Panther Party. I did go to jail. Well, first, I couldn't make no money being a member of the Panther Party, and I was accused of it, which was true, of selling drugs. I was selling drugs for Nicky Barnes. His girlfriend, and who became his wife, was my good friend, Thelma Grant. And I was able to get the good dope. And I was using that. And then I got the I never got a diploma from nothing. I forged a few to qualify for jobs, but I became a drug dealer and sold to production managers and at ad agencies that I worked for. But again, Nicky made a big mistake by allowing himself to be put on the cover of the New York Times magazine, and all of us went down after that. And I spent not a long time in jail. Apparently, I gave up some information that I didn't know that was valuable that got me something like 3-4 months in jail. But everyone else got a great deal of time. But I did stop doing heroin, but I jumped from the frying pan to the fire with crack cocaine. As our government and health organizations was saying back then that it was not addictive. Well, what a farce of distorted news that was. But that illustrates how so many of us rely on media and authority figures to be telling us facts that shape our thinking and our behavior. And my Black community suffers from this greatly, especially about the South. Now, I am one that never connected original paintings to original thought. I never made the connection until much later in life when I started realizing that the history that I did hear about the South, the Civil War and slavery, was helping me or assisting me to adopt victim mentality thinking. And also helped me to be a racist, a bigot. Now, of course, later on in life, I serve now the South in teaching and helping Southerners understand that the African Americans served quite substantially in the Civil War. There were Black Confederates. They don't even teach that in school. I got a directory. You can order it off my website, newsonpublishing.com, that lists about 5,000, 6,000 Black Confederate soldiers, their ranks, their divisions, who owned them, and the pensions that they received after the war. Now, this is something they don't teach. And white folks don't emphasize it because I guess maybe most of them are just trying to hold on and struggle with their history not being erased, but don't realize how the connection of how Blacks supported them, helped them, the thousands of nannies that raised their kids, uncles and nannies buried in family graveyard plots together. All this is a rich history. And all us Christians go around having part-time dislike for the South and certain groups of people don't realize that maybe God was nowhere in the Bible it condemns slavery. Maybe God has his own way of dispersing talents and strengths to different parts of the world for the good of the country. The question is, was slavery a blessing to the African? I'm not answering that, but as a descendant from Nigeria, my bloodline been traced back. I'm so glad that I'm here being able to compete against other higher thinking people and to rub shoulders and to also re-educate myself, retune myself, even change my course of business, direction, anything I wanted to do. Sure, there's racism. Sure, there's collective pushback on the Black community. But individually, if any of us set our mind to do anything, you ask Barack Obama, we could do it. Excuse me for my high introduction.
No, that's perfect. I mean, that's what we do on the show. We let our guests talk. And what will you say? Because I know you have a background behind you. People can't see it, but you have a book series, CSA Buried Treasures.
I have 4 books out. One about Stonewall Jackson, the most celebrated Southern general, who the history books will not tell you that he was raised by a black nanny. And I always wondered, how did this white man, the most leading general of the South, could start the blacks' first school, Sunday school, to teach blacks how to read against Virginia law. To break the law. How did he get the nerve? People try to tell me, it's because of his Christian belief. They didn't hit right until I really did some research work and found out he was raised by a black nanny. And he had strong feelings. He had 3,000 black Confederate soldiers in his ranks. He made sure that black Sunday school was not closed down when he went to war to fight for the South. He paid people to make sure no one touches that school. That's only one instance. And President Jefferson Davis, he adopted a black son. And if you go to the website and put in Jefferson Davis' wife, you can see she looks like a mulatto. She don't look European at all. And that they don't know that President Jefferson Davis sold his plantations to a black man. It's just unbelievable. His name was it'll come to me. Ben Montgomery. And about Nathan Bedford Forrest. There were 2 Ku Klux Klan, a good one and a bad one. Nathan Bedford Forrest, the so-called creator of the Ku Klux Klan, went to war, bought his rank, by the way, as lieutenant. He had so much money. And he had 45 black male slaves. And he asked them, would they serve with him? And they all volunteered to go to war. 7 of those black slaves were his personal escorts. Personal. This man had 27 horses shot out from underneath him. And his 7 personal black escorts saved him many times. And at the end of the war, toward the end of the war, he set them all free. But you're talking about leadership. Here, Robert Shaw, the commander of the Massachusetts 54th that fought the battle at Fort Wagner, the movie Glory. He lost 300 of these black soldiers attacking that fort, and only 12 Confederates died. And then the balance of the Massachusetts 54th was wiped out at Alusty in Florida. Now, how can you call this movie Glory? It was slaughter. Now, here's a Southern general, Nathan Bedford Forrest, took 45 black volunteer soldiers to war and brought 45 back home as free men. All of them had their papers. And 35 of them became his crash sharecropper. And when this little fraternity called the Ku Klux gathered, there was a little fraternity. They were trying to elect a grand wizard. They asked Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee couldn't do it because he had a heart attack, a stroke, a couple months prior. They offered to Nathan. He said, darn well. Why? Because he was having an issue with the governor of Tennessee and the Black Union League. The Union League, after the war, the North had all these black soldiers. So they made up 2 divisions. One was called a Buffalo Soldier to go out and tame the Native American and help steal their land for the white man. The other one was the Union League. Those are the ones that went back with the carpetbaggers. And the policy was in war was for the North and for the South to burn down everything in the town. That includes the courthouses, where all the records of who owned what were stored. And all these courthouses were demolished. So when the carpetbaggers went back with the black Union soldiers to enforce a Reconstruction, many of these whites lost their homes because they couldn't prove that they owned them, and the carpetbaggers just ate it up with black soldiers' help and the bayonet. So a lot of these whites that lost this property had a grudge against black folks, and that spilled all the way to the time you see Martin Luther King and the Freedom Riders being attacked, hung, and chased through the street with water and dogs. That was the residue of this hate for black folks that came down with the carpetbaggers to enforce Reconstruction laws. And of course, our brothers, and which I could have been one of them too, had a chip on their shoulder because, hey, you used to be my master. Now I'm your master. Now get in line or do like I tell you to do, or I'm the law. I got the bandit and the weapon and the uniform. And another thing, after the war, the Southern soldiers could not vote and they couldn't carry a firearm for several years. So there was a lot of grudge handed down from these whites that lost their property to the North. And that's what happened.
When you look
now, I'm not justifying, please forgive me, audience. I'm not justifying racism, slavery, or nothing like that. I'm just talking about, I want the facts so I can make an independent decision on myself. And since I know the facts, now I teach it to white families and their children. I'm invited. I do 40,000 miles a year driving, putting on my art shows and all these Civil War reenactments, historical events. I'm constantly busy. But I started Newson Publishing to really help my black community understand what went down. And I got a sense of rejection. And all of a sudden, the white folks started seeing my stuff, Southerners, and I echoed exactly what they knew. And then all of a sudden, the Sons of the Confederacy, a large organization nationwide, recognized who I was. And every year I appear at the Sons of the Confederacy National Conventions. I sell my artwork. I have a full-time business.
What are some of the things that you hope that young people will be able to understand when they get exposed to the resources that you present on your website, newsonpublishing.com?
I hope that they go to my website and order the new documentary video that I star in as John Jasper. The name of the DVD is called Lincoln's Quest for Empire. I have a part in there where I play John Jasper. Now, of course, our black folks don't know nothing about no Reverend John. Matter of fact, they're told that no black was supposed to be preaching about no God as a slave, and which they're right. But this particular slave was a tobacco stemmer, and secretly he would go, talk about the Bible to whoever listened to him. The master knew he was doing it, but because he was the top tobacco stemmer, the master just, let it be. But one day, John Jasper got tremendously sick, I guess from pulling the stems out of the tobacco. So he was the best. So it had to be quantities of work that he was able to flush out. He got so sick that he was bedridden, and the master sent for the doctor, the best he could find, because that's his top moneymaker now. And the doctor said that there was nothing that he could do for him. He'll probably be dead in a month. And he's sorry. John Jasper heard this, laying in a bed, practically immobile, and he prayed every night until he passed out, every night. Then I don't know how many days it was after, but he woke up one morning completely healed. It scared him so bad, he jumped up with all the power that mighty God can give you and ran out the front of a little cabin, up and down the tobacco field. All the other slaves were distracted from their work, The overseer saw him, tried to catch him on horseback, couldn't. But the slave owner saw him and summoned John Jasper to his office. Within a half an hour, whatever conversation that they had, of course, John Jasper told him about what God had done for him. And the slave owner knew he was doing some illegal part-time preaching, gave him his freedom to go preach. He told him to go to the village, go to there, go and preach. And his church still stands today in Richmond, Virginia.
Wow. Yeah.
Reverend John Jasper. Now, he got so popular, let me tell you, he was invited to do the eulogy of one master that had died, and the family knew John Jasper as a pastor, a legal pastor in the South, and they asked him to do the eulogy. Everybody was so overcome with spiritual possessedness, or whatever you want to call it, that after that burial service and funeral service, other people started asking John to do their eulogy. And he wound up having a waiting list.
Wow.
It's a fascinating story. People, I hope you go out there and Google Reverend John Jasper. And you can get the DVD, but he only plays a small part. The DVD is really, they teach us that the Civil War started in 1860, 1850. It didn't. It started in the 1700s when two religions landed on American shores, one at Plymouth Rock and the other one at Jamestown. And those two religions instigated, navigated the two conflicts because of spiritual domination that they wanted. And Jefferson and Lincoln were manipulated by these two religions. Now, I'm hoping people that look at the news today and look around at every war, and we know how religion plays a major part in conflicts, but that's another story.
Man, we've been talking to our guest today, Gregory Newson. Go to his website, newsonpublishing.com. It's almost like when you're saying all these facts and stories, it's like a movie playing in my head. And I feel like, and somebody needs to make like a series for visual learners as well.
Well, I always went after trying to do original painting.
Yeah.
I never had a clue about original thought. Until after I got out of prison, and I realized that I better not go back to heroin anymore. And then I stepped off into the cocaine world and almost lost my life, or wound up in a hospital, and stepped back and asked myself, I thought that as an artist, I had a promise. I wandered away from that for 10 years. Do you know where I got resurrected? I had gotten a job as an art director in Florida and went on a vacation. I wasn't painting. I wasn't doing no drugs. The only reason I lived in Florida because New York was too persuasive on me. It had too much of a strong influence to do drugs. So I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, where my relatives, my ancestral relatives inherited land from their slave master in Jacksonville, Florida. And one of my cousins told me that I was a descendant of a Confederate soldier. Now, here I is, a former Black Panther Party member, Elijah Mahal follower, to learn that my bloodline goes back to a Confederate soldier was mind-boggling. I told him, shut your mouth. But I went on a small vacation and accidentally stumbled onto the museum home of Stonewall Jackson. And do you know I got resurrected? After that visit, I started painting furiously. I read everything I possibly get. Matter of fact, I was so passionate about reading now that my reading improved greatly. I read every book about Stonewall Jackson, then Nathan Bedford Forrest, Jefferson Davis, and many of so-called white crackers that's supposed to dislike whites or blacks so much. To learn about uncles and nannies. And what infuriated me was when they took the picture of Aunt Jemima off the pancake box for Rena and Uncle Ben, I decided to do my own coffee to name it. Well, no, let me back up. I knew about the Confederados. Mm-hmm. The Confederados were 20,000 Confederate soldiers at the end of the war, fled America and went to South America, Brazil. And they established plantations down there. Many of them took their slaves with them down there. I don't know if they took them or they went voluntarily. I think voluntarily. But every year, audience, go to your Google and put in Confederado. You will actually see the videos of them dancing and celebrating in Confederate uniforms in the streets of San Pablo, Brazil, and other small towns. Well, I went there 8 years ago. And I was waiting and I got terribly tired about 7 o'clock waiting for the full festival to bloom. I had a cup of coffee and I was up until 4 a.m. in the morning off that one single cup of coffee. When I got back to New York, I said, in light of them taking all these black faces off these major brands, I'm going to create my own coffee bag. And I put my own picture on there. And then I marketed it as this coffee is for people with discriminating tastes. And all of a sudden, white folks were drinking this, buying it by the dozen and mailing it to their friends as gifts. And on the side, in the back of the bag, it has history about Black Confederates. I only deal with African Americans that had a patriotic understanding and love for the South. And then I sell it to people with discriminating taste. And it's flying out. I've sold 3,000 bags already. The coffee is exquisite.
From the beginning of your life to what you're doing with your life today, when people listen to this episode, especially those who are interested in learning more about history, right? Because that's very important. What do you hope that they will pay attention to and appreciate the work that you're trying to bring to light for people around the world?
Now, the only thing I got to understand, let me simplify this. There's a lot of people that will not update their computers. They may be still operating with Windows 95, 98. And we know why you don't want to update your computer, because you would have to learn a new operating system. And that's a headache. That's a challenge by yourself. You got chores to do. You got money to make. You got rent to pay. You don't have no time to be now learning this new operating system. So you keep with the old stuff. This is how a lot of our thinking is about the history we learned in high school, junior high school, and we never go back and revisit it and see how it shaped our present view of life and how it has not been as authentic and truthful as you wish to do. But that's not up to the school system. It's not therefore all education only gives you a piece of something. It's up to you to get the rest on your own.
Well said. Well said. Well, once again, you can go visit the website, newsonpublishing.com. You can check out his books. Like you say, he has multiple books that you can just click on that tab and it'll show you everything there. And also you have the coffee that people can get, Uncle Gregory's coffee. And
my paintings.
And your paintings. I was just about to get that's my last one. And closing this up a little bit, let's talk a little bit more about your paintings, because I saw a few of them and man, like great talent. What are some of the things that you can share with us, how people can support your paintings as well?
Well, I sell original paintings, and I also sell what they call G-clay prints, canvas prints. It's a specially processed, very high quality reproduction of original paintings. I do have sales periodically. Of course, I love to have them purchase these these prints, but original paintings are a little pricey. They run from $1,200 to $1,800. But also, if you want to get a better overview of the step-by-step, I have a free book on my website. It's my memoir and autobiography entitled I Get High Watching Paint Dry. Now, the reason it's free, there's a lot of editor mistakes in it, which I'm very unhappy with the editors I selected to do it. So instead of selling it, I'm going to give it away. You only have to pay for the postage. I'm working on this to redo it, but with a second chapter. The first chapter that's free is called I Get High Watching Paint Dry. The second volume is included in the revised relaunch, probably in June, is with the second volume, Painting the Snow Monkey in the Crack Palace. Both these versions will be out in June or August. They will be perfectly, I'm throwing tons of money at editing, AI editing. I'm going back and forth to make sure everything is exactly formatted to I welcome criticism. There won't be no embarrassment in this launch of this book. But the first ones you see on my website now, that's free. It has grammatical and structural problems.
Once again, talking to our guest today, go to Gregory Newson's website. It's newsonpublishing.com. And once again, sir, I want to thank you for your time on the show and sharing not just stories, but history with our audience.
Well, I thank you for inviting me. And I hope you can follow my website as a developer. I've been invited to do some acting, in which that's a new area I'm not very comfortable with, but I'll see what happens.